Every time I hear the word fear, I've trained myself to hear the word courage, because the two words mutually create each other. You can't actually have one without the other. The same could be said for love and hate. You actually can't have one without the other. So fear for me was a limiting factor. I wasn't getting, when I was younger, where I wanted to go because I wasn't able to face and disrupt enough of my own fears, which I realized was just an exercise in courage.
How can embracing disruption be the key to dominating your industry? And what does it take to turn challenges into opportunities for unprecedented growth? Welcome to Care to Lead. I'm your host, Cynthia Corsetti, and today we're diving into the fascinating world of disruption and innovation in business. Joining us is Cole Snell, the visionary founder and CEO of Infineo. Cole is a leader who has not only embraced the challenges of disruption, but has turned them into a formula for thriving in today's fast-paced business environment. Through his company, Cole has been helping organizations innovate and stay ahead of the curve, proving that disruption isn't something to fear, but an opportunity to seize. Welcome, Cole. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Cynthia. Pleasure to be here.
So in the article, you talk about the importance of disruption for growth. What's one of the most significant disruptions that you faced, and how has it personally changed how you lead?
The biggest disruption that I've faced and how it has changed how I lead is really disrupting myself, truthfully. You said a word you said an F word that I love, which is right in your introduction, which is fear. I kind of had to disrupt my fear of failure, I suppose, as an entrepreneur, with courage. Because the word fear, every time I hear the word fear, I've trained myself to hear the word courage, because the two words mutually create each other. You can't actually have one without the other. The same could be said for love and hate. You actually can't have one without the other. So fear for me was a limiting factor, but I always considered myself, as this like alpha male leader, courageous person. I wasn't getting, when I was younger, where I wanted to go because I wasn't able to face and disrupt enough of my own fears, which I realized was just an exercise in courage. So I considered myself to be this super courageous person, but wasn't willing to face a lot of fears, which would be like in business failure, ultimately. So then I just kind of pieced this together. I actually hired a coach, and my coach told me, well, Cole, what's the opposite of fear? He played this emotion game. He played this like name one emotion and then name the opposite emotion. And it was really hard, because he would say, grief. And I'm like, what's the opposite of grief? And he would say resentment. And I'd be like, what's the opposite? I didn't know what the opposite corresponding, say, positive emotion. I knew all these negative emotions, but I didn't know the positive emotion. He said fear. And I'm like, I don't know. What's the opposite of fear? He's like, courage. I'm like, obviously. He's like, Cole, are you courageous? I think so. He's like, do you face fears? I'm like, no. Do you love fear? I'm like, no. Anyway, I could go. I had to disrupt my emotional patterns and rethink my thinking.
Well, first of all, I have to love the fact that you plugged coaching, because obviously I'm a coach, and it's powerful. Once a coach can help you see things differently, they don't change who you are. They help you tweak and see things differently. And that's a really good example of how that was able to happen for you. And so once you made that switch, once you were able to see the opposites and view things differently, how did you start to look at business different? And what changes did you make at that point?
Not worrying about outcomes. That was really the big thing. And so if I think about, well, I'm going to face fear. Okay, great. I'm courageous. So I'm courageous. I'm going to face the fear. In business, I can't be afraid to fail. So let's take that. And for me, it was like, well, let's dissect that even further. And then it became not worrying about outcomes, and then managing expectations of people. Of other people, really controlling what I can, like myself, and not trying to control a bunch of other things that I can't control, which is just basically other people. Right. And so just managing those expectations, like really not having them. And that just allowed me to be this bull, allowed me to be this, really, really kind of aggressive, authentic. It allowed me, all of that filtered this ability to be really, really honest and authentic. And again, face the fear of being judged, face the fear of being canceled. I mean, we went through a wild time in business. I mean, as a leader in the world that was the last 4 or 5 years in North America and Europe, there was a big cancel culture that existed. And, you were kind of asked to fit a certain mold. And if you didn't, you could be canceled. And so, facing the fears of running a rapidly growing startup a global startup in the financial industry in the face of what was cancel culture was, it demanded a lot of courage and fear facing, to say the least.
So how do you create a culture for your employees and your team members that they're not afraid to take risk? Because in leadership, that's paramount. If your people are afraid to take risk, you can't accomplish very much. But it's really hard. It's one thing to say, yes, we know you're going to make mistakes. We want you to take risk. We want you to go for it. But when they do, like how that's received matters. So tell me what you do in your organization to create that culture.
Yeah, I call it superpower culture. And it's top to bottom. And this last startup that I had, the business Infineo, it was built in day number one. Is that me as the founder and CEO? I said, I will only be in my superpower. My superpower is defined as what I like to do and what I'm good at are one and the same. So I will only do what I like to do because it's what I'm good at. And we call that superpower culture. We have now 30 plus people in the organization. Everybody is in their superpower. If someone's not, because of the culture that surrounds superpower, if someone is not in their superpower, they stick out like a sore thumb. It's really obvious because everybody is in flow and everybody is working in their superpower. When someone's not, it looks just really obvious. It's like they've got a big red flag hanging over their head, and allows management and their peers and their colleagues to be able to come in and just say, hey, what's up? Is everything okay? Why are you not functioning? Why are you not hitting KPIs? Why do you seem down? Why is your energy off? I don't like what I'm doing. Well, let's move you out, right? Let's move you out and move you in to what you like to do because we know it's what you're good at. So it's very auspicious. It's very selfish, right? Selfishness can be very positive. So yeah, that's what we call it, superpower culture.
So you've made a giant leap in your business entrepreneur world from like food services and so on to Infineo. So let's talk about that a little bit and what made you make that transformation, and tell me more.
I had one of my salespeople come back. I built a global kind of value-added food company. We were kind of on the pinnacle of artisanal, organic, natural, farm to table, farm to fork, all of that. The Food Network was just coming up. This is like 12 years ago. And I managed to kind of catch on to that trend. We recognized that consumers, say, whether if it was Costco or Walmart or Whole Foods was leading the way, wanted more. They wanted not just to buy a piece of deli meat or cheese or olive oil, but they also wanted to have a story with it. And we kind of believe that behind every good, food product SKU was a better story. And that was kind of we sourced food that had great stories, generally speaking. So this was smaller batch, smaller producers, again, artisanal, farm to table, organic, type stuff. They had good stories. So we made sure as a company, we kind of put the story forward. Our motto was, pay more, get more. Food is expensive. It's a commodity. If you don't eat, what happens? Well, you die. Right? Like you could argue that food is the most important thing in the world. And then one of my sales guys came back to me and goes, Cole, people can't afford our food. And then I realized it just hit me like a ton of bricks that I need to get out of the food industry and move to the financial industry because I thought food was the lowest common denominator. And it's not. It's money. Money is the lowest common denominator. Today, we don't forage or grow our food. We buy it. And I recognized that if people had more certainty around money, and I was very curious as to why people couldn't afford our food. Let's just be honest. Better quality food costs a lot more money. And so do we want to nourish our bodies? We need to nourish our wallets. And that's the bottom line. And so I went on a mission to kind of identify, well, how do I add value to money? How do I create more certainty for people around money? And that was the transition. I sold my business. It did very well. I had a bunch of capital and I applied what I was trying to learn to myself. I had a bunch of capital. My financial advisor said, Cole, you have a problem. You have too much money in your checking account. I said, I'm aware of that. I know the pitfalls of banks, what could happen. And he said, he started giving me advice as to what to do with the money. And it blew my mind and changed my life.
Sounds like a good financial advisor.
It was very good. It was very challenging. It took me a year to kind of believe that what was coming out of his mouth was true, but it was. And, here I am 6 years later, immersed.
So what should our listeners know about about money right now. If I have money in my checking account or money in the stock market, which like right now with the change and all the things that are happening globally, stock market's kind of a scary spot, at least for me. So tell me, like, what would you tell me if I were your customer?
Oh, well. So, I mean, clearly, I have to say, obviously, what I'm about to say, if anything comes out of my mouth, is not financial advice. But, you know, by any, all that kind of nonsense disclaimer stuff, I'm not licensed to give financial advice either. But, you know, what I would say, and I love that question. And what I would say very, very clearly is that whoever is listening to this, and to answer your question, I would say to them that they have an exponential once in 1,000 year opportunity to 500, 1,000x their money. There is no time like right now to make a massive amount of money because of being on the right side of, simply put, technology. And those technologies are artificial intelligence and blockchain. Simply investing, as far as the stock market goes, just investing into like macro trends, incredible, say, ETFs that face credible AI stocks or blockchain stocks. I mean, the amount of efficiency that we are going to see an increase in GDP for nation states globally because of artificial intelligence, and the amount of trust and truth that's going to be coming out of that because of blockchain is completely remarkable. Let's just like identify, you know, what's happening with Bitcoin, you know, as an example. Look what the new US administration is, you know, saying. I mean, we have a division of the US government called Doge. This is not a simulation. This is real, right? Doge was historically one of the funniest meme coins, crypto tokens called Dogecoin in the entire world. Now it stands for Department of Government Efficiency. So this isn't a meme. I mean, this is real. I mean, this is not a simulation. This is happening. It's frightening to think that there's a lot of people that don't understand it. I think those people today, it's not about investing. It's about educating yourself. You don't need to go to school, go to YouTube, spend an hour a week, discipline yourself, put it in your schedule, and watch YouTube video. Some of it's going to be nonsense. Some of it's going to be BS. Some of it's going to be true. Allow it to work through your ability to exercise deduction and come up with an opinion, and then move from there and invest your money. And then be patient with your money. Invest your money and just let it sit there. Don't touch it. Don't trade. You don't need to trade your money. Just be like Warren Buffett and just let it sit there and do its thing.
How many years do you think someone needs? Like, so are you talking to people that are like in their 20s that have like years and years? Or are you talking to people at any juncture in life?
Yeah, any juncture, you know, in life, really. Absolutely. I mean, I had my parents buy Bitcoin through they're Canadian. And in Canada, there's an ETF that's existed. The SEC in the United States has used the OCS, the Ontario Securities Commission, as a sandbox for years. And for 3 years, you've been able to buy in a tax-free savings account a spot Bitcoin ETF, which is, no one knows that in Canada. It's called QBTC.U. And you could actually buy and own Bitcoin, spot Bitcoin, in a tax-free vehicle. And so, I mean, my parents, I'm 52. My parents are in their 70s. I had them buy Bitcoin, you know, the other day. I mean, why, you know, and then my daughter, she doesn't know it, but she owns Bitcoin. All right. So it's, I'm not giving advice for people to buy Bitcoin, but I mean, Bitcoin just kind of represents an opportunity. And it just could be companies like NVIDIA as an example, as an AI type company. I mean, it's just remarkable, you know, what's out there. It's just about getting in the game and really kind of getting out of cash, right? Getting out of fiat, that, you know, as it were. But then some people listening to this may go, well, what's fiat? Just go Google it, research fiat currency, you know, and then think about capital. I mean, think about your capital. What is capital? Google capital. What is capital? But then also, I think it's very important, and a fundamental piece of the thing that I learned was, what is capital? And then what do you do with your capital? Capital has to exist somewhere. This is very important. Capital could exist in fiat, which is cash, in your mattress. It could exist in a bank and a checking account. It could exist in an ETF or a fund or private equity, as an example. Yeah, I live mostly in the Bahamas, and they have these things here called ASUs, which are these community-funded, trusted networks for lending, which are like these very ancient African kind of strategy of community financing. if you will. So your capital has to exist somewhere. Where does your capital exist? You have opportunities right now to park your money in vehicles that aren't just traditional banks, and the pitfalls of traditional banks that would be, say, fractional reserve banking, inflation, what have you. So, geez, 6 years ago, I didn't know anything that I'm talking about right now. I don't come from the financial industry. I'm not a finance bro. I hate acronyms. At my company, I have a no acronym zone. If one of my staff ever uses an acronym, and I used SEC, so the Securities Exchange Commission, I didn't qualify it. I did say OCS and Ontario Securities Commission, the only two acronyms I've used in this conversation. If you're getting financial advice from someone and they use acronyms and they don't tell you what they are, they're douchebags. That's just what it is. And the reason is because people don't understand what these acronyms mean, right? And I often wonder, do the financial advisors that are using them, do they even understand, what they mean? They don't. So you got to get good financial advice. You got to find someone that's real. And the likelihood of doing that is very, very slim. So you got to educate yourself. You got to go to YouTube, the internet, Chat GPT, your neighbor, just start asking questions.
Yeah, it's interesting because for years, you have financial planners and so on there's so many guidelines and restrictions to what they can say, what they can post, how they can educate you. It's all through this little bubble of what their rules and regulations are. So you really don't get all the information. And then when you go to YouTube, and I'll just throw it out there, I am really clueless in a lot of this. I shouldn't be. It's inexcusable, but I'm not that person.
It's painful.
I'm the leadership person. But when I look at that stuff, it's just like, it's just too hard and I skip it. But it's so important at this juncture to really be secure. And I don't feel secure.
No, most people do not. And the system is designed that way. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. And I even find it strange that when I speak this way, I used to listen to people like me now speaking this way and I go, I just haven't kind of got around to it. I haven't, for some reason, educated myself on how money works. No, money is made to be complicated. Money is made to encourage fear, right? You need to be courageous to go and study and learn about money and how money works and how to make your money compound. You need to exercise courage to be able to do it. And most people today don't want to exercise courage. We wake up and we have all kinds of things flooding us with being complacent and not finding pain, right? But, life is designed, in my opinion, to be difficult. We need to find a relative pain and discomfort. And that really, unfortunately, is just learning what all these acronyms mean and starting to kind of piece it together. The beautiful thing is that technology is making this simpler. We are removing very quickly and exponentially, not just my company, but the entire industry, the demand of financial literacy, which I'm describing and what you, Cynthia, are identifying as something you need more of. But you're like 99.9% of Americans and North Americans and Europeans that don't get it, really. Why would they? The system has asked you not to get it, right? They have designed it to make it very highbrow and for an elitist type person who has an MBA or, is on the Wall Street or something. The solution is moving away from financial literacy and moving towards financial stewardship. And that's what at Infineo that we've been doing. We've been creating products that create a financial stewardship. Financial stewardship would be like, I'll give you an example. Like I like cars. I don't like that I like cars. They're a terrible investment, but I love cars. I love cars because my father loved cars and my grandfather loved cars and my uncle still loves cars. I grew up around cars. So I have cars. I just do it because I do it. It's what I know. This is a stewardship that was passed down to me. The same can be said for financial products. We have products and systems to be able to allow generation after generation to be born into windfalls of tax-free dollars. You have to engage and be patient and be long-term on certain products and strategies, which are very, very simple. Just basically make your premium payments, put your money into the system. And then after generation after generation, it will pour money back out to you in a tax-free way and fully regulated. And this is basically life insurance, and I'm not even a life insurance. This is just people understanding life insurance. I could not think of an asset class that has a worse reputation. I'm even if I say the word life insurance, I kind of
cringe.
Oh, I walk into a room and they cringe. They cringe. But what we're doing is we're taking all of it. We're taking we're throwing life insurance in the garbage. We're taking all of the algorithms underneath it that are so sound and solid. And I'm not going to sit here and promote life insurance because I don't sell life insurance. But when you understand the science of life insurance, when you understand what the science of life insurance does, is it gives you the ability, this is very important, to leverage, liquidate, and valuate the most important asset in the world. This is the best definition of life insurance that anyone will ever give you. And I am not wrong when I say this. It gives you the ability, every human being, born and blessed with this body. We are born and blessed with this life. We have the ability to invest into our life through the algorithm of life insurance. Throw out all the life insurance is a corrupt industry. It's sold in an inexcusable way. No one understands it. But the beauty of it is the foundation of it, the algorithm of it, the science of it is so profound. You literally can invest into your physical body, just like you can invest into a home or into a piece of real estate, of land, or into Bitcoin, or into NVIDIA, or into the stock market. You do that through the vehicle and the algorithm of life insurance. The most important thing in the world, and I say this question, I walk into boardrooms all the time and I say to people, what's the most important thing in the world? There's a financial people, and they'll say gold, they'll say real estate, they'll say their art collection. I go, nope. Then they'll give me three more. And I go, nope. They go, what is it? I go, a human life. No one can argue that. But they go, Cole, okay, from a financial perspective, how do you leverage, liquidate, and valuate that? I go, oh, it's only existed for 200 years in North America and 500 years in Europe. It's called life insurance. They go, what? Yeah. You can actually use the algorithm, the science of life insurance, to put premium and money into your life and then take it back out. And it grows exponentially in a compounded way, uninterrupted, high Sharpe ratio, low standard deviation. It has the best ROI in the entire world. And you can do this perpetually. You do it for your kids. Then your kids do it for their kids and then their kids. And then you create a flywheel. Everyone becomes, I wrote a book called Child Millionaire on this philosophy. And our economist, Dr. Robert Murphy, one of the most famous Austrian economists in the world, wrote a white paper on the viability of this. This will happen, and technology leads. It's not life insurance. It's technology with the algorithm and the science of life insurance that allows this to happen.
Okay, there's definitely a lot of passion in your voice for this topic. And also, there seems to be a lot of authenticity behind what you're saying. Like, you genuinely believe everything you're saying, and you're very knowledgeable on it. How do you, as the leader of this company, ensure that all the people that are working for you have just as much passion, just as much authenticity and integrity? And I read your core values, obviously, in the interview. We talked about your core values. How do you instill those within your organization?
Oh, well, science, first off. Our core values are FIT, first principles, integrity, transparency, or trust. And we lead that way. We don't lead through assumptions or ideas. We lead through facts. We live in fact. This is important. Everything that I'm saying to you is fact. It's math. There's no gray area to what I'm saying. People may disagree with it only because they don't understand it. But once they understand it, they will agree with it. They can't not agree with it. There's nothing disagreeable with what I'm saying and what we're doing. We've spent millions and millions of dollars and years of our life. How do I lead the team? Well, I lead the team through fact, and I lead the team through opportunity. I'm a big believer in putting money in people's pockets. I tell my team, come in here, be accountable. We work 6 days a week. We don't do Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. We are late stage startup in hyper growth mode. We put people into their superpower, like I said, and we make sure they're paid, right? We pay people. We pay people really, really, really well, right? We put them in their superpower and we pay them power and pay. That's it. And we give them options. And that's very important. I read a stat the other day that something like 70% of NVIDIA employees are multimillionaires. Well, they are because they had options packages. And this is a very important way. When you build a company structurally, you got to pay people. You got to tell people, I will never be afraid to walk into a room and talk to a group of people and say, look, if you're going to follow me, I'm going to make you rich. I have a responsibility to put money in and I'm talking about investors, right? I have a responsibility to become outrageously wealthy. And that is because of a rising tide. That's a barometer of everyone else around me because everyone is bought in. Contemporary businesses today are mutually created. Everybody is an owner. I mean, this is system that has existed for years and will exist. And that's actually a very good use case for blockchain because of DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations, and hyperstructures are these communities where people work together.
So you definitely are, what you're doing with is different and unique, and it's not a typical, and it's absolutely opposite of like your traditional like life insurance company of the old days. So tell me right now, Infineo, who would be your ideal customer? Who do you deal with specifically?
I mean, anyone that has capital that wants it to exist in a more favorable way. If anyone that has opportunity cost in their life, a customer is any human being. Let's any human being around the world that wants to have more. They want to have more financial certainty, really, is our customer. And I wish I could drill it down something. We have a strategy for children. Specifically, we have a philanthropy program that we run. We are making the premium payments and funding these products for children. Instead of taking an advertising budget and putting a bunch of money, advertising with the NFL or the NBA or like a lot of insurance companies do. You've seen a lot of the State Farm and Liberty Mutual and, they're doing some super fun, cool ads. We've decided to take our ad dollars and put it into funding financial strategies for kids globally. Yeah. And we call that the Child Millionaire program. And that program is being rolled out as we speak. We are making those premium payments. We actually are starting in the Bahamas with 2 not-for-profit homes designed for impoverished and disadvantaged youth and parents. And we've had approval from the Bahamian regulators and government to be able to do this and participation from the homes. And we'll be scaling this out around the world.
Wow, that's impressive. So you have a lot to be proud of. I'm going to jump into a lightning round just to get to know you personally a little bit better. But before we do that, is there anything else you want to share with our listeners that you just really want them to know right now? Start
a business. And you all do. You all think about it. Go do it. And,
right.
And you know what? And I say, just go hurry up and fail, right? Just get the failure out of it. You're going to do it eventually at some point in your life. Just hurry up and get it out of the way.
That's awesome. Okay, let's go into a lightning round. First answer that comes to your mind. What is one book or podcast that has deeply influenced your leadership journey?
Jordan Peterson.
Coffee, tea, or something else?
Coffee.
If you could have dinner with any leader, past or present, who would it be and why?
Donald Trump. Donald Trump? Why? Because he's going to do unbelievable, amazing things over the next 4 years.
Okay, great. Thank you. Our listeners already know Care to Lead is my signature leadership system. It's built on the foundation of 4 pillars: clarity, authenticity, responsibility, and engagement. So Cole, of these 4 pillars, which one resonates most with your leadership journey, and how has it influenced the way you lead? Responsibility is. My coach, who's a psychologist, doesn't like me using the word responsibility, but I won't get into why, but I still stick with it. I feel responsible. I feel a great deal of responsibility for everything that I'm talking about. And also ultimately the people who, expect me to do certain things. It's interesting because when we use responsibility, I like the way you're using it. When I created Care to Lead, that responsibility was like this internal take responsibility for things instead of finger pointing. Like in organizations, a lot of people are, well, if IT did that and if they did this and it's like control what you can control. And that's kind of what we mean by responsibility. But I think that's kind of what you're saying as well. But I could get where your psychologist could say it's like everything's not your problem. So right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, well said. So thank you, Cole, for sharing your insights and your experience with us today. And we really appreciate you being here. Great. Thank you, Cynthia. It was really fun. And for our listeners, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Care to Lead. Remember, leaders who care to lead. Until next time.